At the pinnacle of the bridge stands a man clad only in partial attire, none other than the legendary illusionist, Harry Houdini. In this particular act, he is expected to leap from the bridge while bound in handcuffs. The circumstances surrounding Harry Houdini's death are elusive, and his life presents an even more captivating puzzle. A century ago, Houdini's performances drew crowds in the tens of thousands, enchanting audiences not just in America, but also across England, France, Germany, and Russia. He was confined in a water tank, elevated high above while wearing a straitjacket. He leaped from the bridge while bound in handcuffs. He outsmarted not just death, but everyone around him, and he accomplished this with remarkable success. For the truth is, there was no Harry Houdini. He was merely a young man from a struggling immigrant family, lacking wealth, education, or influential ties. Yet, within a few short years, he transformed into a figure recognized by the entire globe. Houdini generated excitement well before the advent of the internet. He pioneered challenges long before YouTube existed. He successfully misled everyone because there was no Harry Houdini. Instead, there was just a young man from an impoverished immigrant family, devoid of wealth, education, or connections. Within a few short years, he rose to global fame. Houdini generated excitement long before the internet and crafted challenges well ahead of YouTube's inception. The name Houdini became synonymous with magic. His life was dynamic, and his enigmatic death took many by surprise. This sparked a host of theories and rumors, which could hold truth and which should be dismissed. We will definitely explore this further. This narrative is not solely focused on the renowned magician Harry Houdini. It tells of a subtle trick that continues to be effective even today. The 20th century teemed with mysteries and intrigue. Among them, a short list of 5 to 10 enigmas draws significant discussion online, introducing fresh theories, each more captivating than the previous. The mystery surrounding Harry Houdini's death is undeniably part of this repertoire. Firstly, the unusual passing of one of the most recognizable figures, both nationally and globally in the mid-20s, raises numerous questions. Secondly, as an illusionist, Houdini executed perilous tricks hundreds of times, always emerging unscathed. Yet, he abruptly died at the height of his life. Quite peculiar. Lastly, at the time of his death, Harry Houdini stood at the forefront in the battle against organized crime. In the mid-20s, this certainly raises questions. Additionally, Harry Houdini was an illusionist who executed perilous tricks hundreds of times, always managing to survive. Then, quite unexpectedly, he dies in the prime of his life. Odd indeed. By the time of his death, Harry Houdini was a prominent figure in the fight against a major mafia organization. To its members, he represented a persistent nuisance, an annoyance, and an obstruction all rolled into one. Lastly, while nearly everyone recognizes the name Harry Houdini, few possess an understanding of his true impact and prominence. Here's a brief illustration. The year is 1903. Harry Houdini arrives in Marseille, where he receives a superstar's welcome, despite the fact that just 5 years earlier, few recognized him, even in his own America. Houdini approaches a high-ranking police official with an intriguing proposal. He suggests being handcuffed and confined in a prison wagon If he fails to escape, both the wagon and he will be dispatched directly to Siberia. The police officer agrees to the challenge. Houdini, in his undershirt, undergoes a thorough search, is handcuffed and confined in the wagon while they wait. After 27 minutes, he escapes to the amazement of the onlookers. At that moment, no one could comprehend how he managed it, just like with most of his performances. Yet, not all mysteries endure throughout time. In this video, we will be unraveling tricks and dispelling myths. For a considerable period, Houdini's diaries were thought to be lost, but when they were eventually discovered, another issue emerged. Half of the content he wrote turned out to be fabricated. I trust that from this brief introduction, you've already realized that today you will hear the story of one of the most extraordinary individuals of the 20th century. The life of our protagonist began shrouded in mystery. In his diary, Harry Houdini claimed he was born in April 1874 in Appleton, a town in the central United States. Almost none of this is accurate, but you must admit, only a true master could tell 3 lies in a single sentence. When the boy was born, his surname was not Houdini. He came into the world far from the United States and, in reality, not in April. You will understand later why Harry misrepresented the facts even in his personal diary. The actual details of Houdini's life were only uncovered years after his death, and here's the true account. 1874. A boy is born in Budapest, Hungary. His name is Erik Weiss. At the age of 4, he relocates to America with his family, settling in the small town of Appleton in the central region of the country. While there was a sizable Jewish community, there was no rabbi. And here is how it truly was. 1874, a boy named Erik Weiss is born in Budapest, Hungary. At the age of 4, he and his family moved to America, settling in the small town of Appleton in the central part of the country. There was a sizable Jewish community, but no rabbi. The new location required work for the father of the future illusionist, Meyer Samuel Weiss. Much later, this account of events would seem dull to Harry Houdini, who would assert a different tale. Allegedly, his father had killed a prominent member of the royal family in a duel in Hungary and was compelled to escape. The story is, of course, fabricated, but it certainly has an appealing flair. One of the pivotal events in Houdini's life happens when he is 8. His father loses his position as a rabbi, and the family, which then has 7 children, relocates to a nearby town. For the following years, they endure severe poverty. This period would remain etched in the memory of the future superstar for the rest of his life and profoundly shape Houdini's character. In his diary, he scarcely references the 5 years spent in the small town of Milwaukee. One of the rare memories from that time is attending a performance by the renowned illusionist Dr. Lin. His most famous act featured separating body parts from his assistant in front of awestruck spectators. This trick left a lasting impression on 10-year-old Houdini. Today, the audience would undoubtedly observe the strategically positioned light on stage. Among the 5 years spent in the small town of Milwaukee, one of the scarce memories from that time is attending a performance by the celebrated illusionist Dr. Lin. His most renowned trick featured detaching body parts from his assistant in front of astonished onlookers. This act had a significant impact on 10-year-old Houdini. Today, the audience would undoubtedly recognize the strategically positioned light on stage, the intricately hung drapes, and other illusions. But in the 19th century, spectators regarded Dr. Lin's performance as a marvel. A challenging childhood and a passion for theatrical displays are two elements that will not only shape Erik Weiss, but also help him evolve into Harry Houdini. When the future illusionist turns 14, his father relocates the family to New York. Everyone who has set foot in New York for the first time has felt the same emotions that young Erik Weiss experienced at the end of the 19th century. The streets, flanked by towering buildings, bustling crowds, and dazzling lights, create a sense that anything is possible, perhaps even more than that. Upon arriving in New York, Houdini begins his work. His incomplete education will serve as his sole formal learning. This deficiency in knowledge will surely be a source of concern for our hero for nearly the entirety of his life. Nevertheless, young Erik Weiss probably had limited alternatives. The family continued to live in destitution. Concurrently, the teenager developed a passion for sports, not only for the particular disciplines, but also for the excitement of competition. He practiced boxing and participated in running. One of the greatest joys of sports for young Houdini was the chance to come in first. A teenage photograph of our hero in a sports uniform, decorated with a collection of medals on his chest, has been kept. Some of these awards are genuine, while others are mere replicas. Harry Houdini, who was still Erik Weiss at the time, crafted his own medals from milk bottle caps. Older audience members likely remember the glass bottles for milk and kefir with flexible metal caps. This is precisely what Harry Houdini employed to boost his sense of significance. The existence of the fake medals, as you would agree, speaks volumes. Upon arriving in New York, Erik Weiss sought to achieve victories more frequently and increase his earnings, thus setting himself apart from the wave of immigrants. In essence, he yearned to be part of something larger than himself. At that point, 15-year-old Erik Weiss discovers a memoir by the famed illusionist Robert Houdin, a name that holds little significance for the average person. However, he is indeed a legendary figure, and now presents an ideal opportunity to delve into the captivating history of magic in a brief yet engaging manner. He yearned to be part of something larger than himself. During this time, 15-year-old Erik Weiss stumbled upon a memoir by the renowned illusionist Robert Houdin, a name that holds little relevance for the general public. In truth, he is a legendary figure, and now provides an ideal occasion to briefly yet captivatingly explore the history of magic. Magic boasts a rich history. In ancient Egypt and Rome, market performers showcased tricks involving cups and balls, where stones served as the balls. Over time, illusionists and magicians gained a rather ominous reputation. They were often likened to witches and sorcerers. It wasn't until the 17th and 18th centuries that this negative perception diminished, allowing illusionists to become an essential aspect of fairground entertainment. They might have continued performing at that level had it not been for the aforementioned Frenchman, Robert Houdin. In the 19th century, he revolutionized street shows aimed at the impoverished by elevating them into spectacular theatrical performances intended for a wealthy audience. To illustrate, these acts extended beyond mere cups and balls. For example, Robert was the pioneer in making a person levitate. In summary, Houdin is still recognized as the father of modern stage magic. In 1889, 15-year-old Erik Weiss considers Robert Houdin's book a manual for his future endeavors. He is determined to become an illusionist. The first step he takes is to change his name. A friend advises Erik to take on Houdin's surname as his own. Robert was the first to successfully make a person levitate. In essence, Houdini is still considered the father of modern stage magic. In 1889, 15-year-old Erik Weiss sees Robert Houdin's book as a blueprint for action. He is resolute in his ambition to become an illusionist. His first move is to change his name. A friend suggests he take Houdin's surname as inspiration and alter it slightly. Thus, Erik Weiss transforms into Harry Houdini. Furthermore, this becomes more than just a stage identity. From this point forward, Harry Houdini disregards his Hungarian roots and publicly asserts that he is American. He even erases any reference to his homeland and true name from his personal diary. Was it justified to be so definitive? That is certainly debatable. However, in one regard, the future star was correct. The master of magic Erik Weiss lacks the same appeal as Harry Houdini. In 1891, 17-year-old Houdini embarks on his journey to success. For a teenager from a disadvantaged background, lacking education or connections, show business is nearly the only avenue to achieve something extraordinary. In this respect, the situation has changed little over the centuries. While still working at a tie factory, he participates in what are known as dime shows, a dime being a 10-cent coin. This is the fee that audiences pay to enter this unique entertainment fair. Instead of pavilions, various performers take the stage: strongmen, animal trainers, fire eaters, and of course, magicians. The spectator approaches, observes, and if intrigued, decides to stay. If not, they move on. The dime shows of that era act as both an entry ticket into show business and a training ground for emerging performers. Performing the same tricks 10 times a day for several years provides ideal practice for a young artist. Whether they like it or not, they inevitably improve at their craft. For several years, Harry Houdini's career is just starting to gain traction. At this time, his father passes away. Houdini vows to care for his mother and family. He fulfills that promise, but not right away. Harry continues to perform at dime shows, where he meets a female assistant named Bess. She eventually becomes his wife. Their joint act is now referred to as Houdinis in the plural. In 1898, 24-year-old Houdini's career appears to be stagnant, if not in decline. He remains rooted in the realm of carnival performances. Harry and his wife move in with his mother. The female assistant named Bess becomes his wife, and their act is now referred to as Houdinis in the plural. In 1898, 24-year-old Houdini's career seems to be at a standstill, if not in decline. He remains confined to the world of carnival performances. Harry and his wife move in with his mother. It's hard to believe, but just a year later, he will become the most famous illusionist in America. In Russia, at the end of the 19th century, the English word hype likely already existed. However, its meaning and scope were slightly different than they are today. Even then, these four letters set a successful artist apart from an unsuccessful one. In 1899, Harry Houdini invents the escape from handcuffs. While that might sound impressive, it's not enough to attract newspaper attention. However, escaping from handcuffs in a police station is a different scenario altogether. This incident quickly makes headlines. Houdini starts to travel, showcasing his performances in various American cities. In his shows, he features a standard program similar to that of an average illusionist of the era. But hype transforms everything. Upon arriving in a new city, Houdini first visits the police station before his performance, executes the escape trick, and earns coverage in the local newspapers. The outcome? His shows sell out. The man of adventure becomes not only the first illusionist, but also the first artist in history to skillfully manipulate the audience. But hype transforms everything. When Houdini arrives in a new city, he first visits the police station before his performance, showcases the escape trick, and catches the attention of the local newspapers. The result? His shows sell out, and the man of adventure not only becomes the first illusionist, but also the first artist in history to expertly manipulate the press. Such a trick would undoubtedly still be popular today. Just imagine a YouTube video titled, "I'll escape from a police station in 20 minutes, a challenge that could garner millions of views and thousands of likes. At the turn of the century, Houdini's popularity in the media draws the interest of producers and influential impresarios. Martin Beck not only invites Harry to perform in his show at some of the finest venues in the country, but also plays a crucial role in shaping the future star's career. Beck advises Houdini to move away from standard tricks and concentrate exclusively on escapes and breakouts. By the dawn of the 20th century, Houdini has built a reputation as a master of escape. He embarks on a tour that takes him not only through American cities, but also to Europe and Russia. In every location, he showcases his escape from a police station and constructs his entire show program around various escapes. Now is the ideal moment to unveil some secrets that contributed to Houdini's remarkable success. The first escape from handcuffs was a pivotal moment in many of Houdini's tricks. He would leap into water while handcuffed from a bridge and would be submerged in a water tank while still in cuffs. Ultimately, he recreated this stunt in every police station. It's important to note one key point. While many of his secrets were never revealed by Houdini, over the past few decades, illusionists have carefully examined numerous tricks and have made strides in unveiling the magic behind them. So, handcuffs. At the close of the 19th century, there weren't many varieties of handcuffs and locks available. Houdini amassed all possible key variations, often making this collection his secret. The primary question remained, where to conceal them? Often, Harry performed tricks nearly bare and even permitted searches before the show started to hide the keys. Houdini would have a thumb cover on his hand resembling a real key, or a cover on his foot, or a key hidden in his mouth, and most likely used multiple methods simultaneously. In addition to real keys, the illusionist himself invented clever devices. These were utilized when attempts to find the correct key were unsuccessful. During his studies, Harry uncovered that certain types of handcuffs could be unlocked without a key at all. All it took was tapping in the right spot on a hard surface. Upon arriving in a new city, he would consistently examine the location for his stunt, with the handcuffs influencing his strategy for the upcoming escape. In the early 20th century, Houdini created one of his most renowned tricks, the escape from a milk can. A standard milk can was used for this performance. Before the act, the illusionist would invite a few willing audience members to thoroughly inspect the can for any hidden secrets. Once everything was examined, the can would be filled to the brim with water, and Houdini would climb inside while handcuffed. After that, the lid of the can was secured shut. The audience held its breath in anticipation. The illusionist had only a limited amount of time to escape, just as long as his breath would last. After approximately a minute, Harry Houdini would emerge next to the can, alive, unscathed, and free of handcuffs. The can itself remained entirely undisturbed. The secret was as follows. The top portion of the can was fastened with rivets. To the audience members who examined it prior to the trick, the rivets seemed to be securely in place. However, from the inside, they could be easily loosened. The top section would not come off completely, allowing him to replace it afterward. Of course, by the time Houdini emerged from the can, either the lights in the hall would dim or a curtain would fall. However, everything transpired so swiftly that the unsuspecting audience was convinced Houdini had performed a miracle. He would stand next to the can, its lid remaining securely closed. Before long, Houdini's performances grew increasingly extravagant, ultimately featuring the disappearance of an entire elephant. For now, in the early 20th century, his escape from the milk can and breakouts from police stations were sufficient to make him a subject of conversation across multiple continents. Houdini garnered acclaim not just from America, but from nearly all of Europe as well. He became exceedingly famous and incredibly wealthy. At this point, it appears that Harry Houdini has accomplished everything that the teenage Erik Weiss once envisioned. A key indicator of any success is the emergence of imitators. While Houdini toured Europe for several years, numerous lookalikes began to appear in America. People not only borrowed ideas from his tricks, but also fully embraced his persona, even adopting his surname. The especially bold individuals referred to themselves as Houdini. Those with a bit more creativity made slight modifications to their stage names. In 1905, Harry returned to the United States with the intention of confronting the imitators. A particularly significant episode was his plan to challenge a woman who went by the stage name Minerva. She also performed in the escape genre. Her rise posed a double threat to Houdini. His persona was predicated on physical strength and stamina. What would the audience think if even a woman could duplicate his tricks? Harry concocted a clever scheme to promote another female illusionist. In his mind, she would draw attention away from Minerva while remaining entirely under his control. Whether Houdini was able to execute his cunning plan fully remains uncertain. However, what is clear is that in the competition for the title of the world's top illusionist, he was willing to go to any lengths. For Houdini, genuine success was not solely about his own victory. Attention was diverted from Minerva. However, whether he was truly able to control her fully remains uncertain. What is clear is that in the fight for the title of the world's leading illusionist, he was willing to go to great lengths. For Houdini, genuine success encompassed not only his own victories, but also the defeats of his rivals. Another episode reveals the more sinister aspects of the illusionist's character. Once an individual attains fame and fortune, they often aim to transition to the next level, gaining respect. Houdini pursued this path as well. He sits down to document the history of magic. It's clear that for someone with limited education, writing an encyclopedia is a psychologically understandable move. To compile the book, he contacts the family of Robert Houdin, the father of magic, who sparked his fascination with illusions. They reply with a rejection. This rejection affects Houdini profoundly, leading him to essentially transform the book into a means of undermining his mentor. Despite his media prominence, Harry Houdini's history of magic fails to resonate. This moment aligns with other challenges in the illusionist's career. Slowly, the audience begins to grow weary of the routine escapes. Ticket sales for his shows begin to plummet. In fact, it gets to the point where his face is absent from posters in some cities. Houdini understands that he requires a new sensation. His media prominence crumbles. This moment aligns with additional challenges in the illusionist's career. Slowly, the audience begins to lose interest in the repetitive escapes. Ticket sales for his performances diminish, reaching a point where his face no longer appears on posters in some cities. Houdini recognizes that he requires a new sensation. At the end of 1908, Harry Houdini leaps from a bridge. Thousands of spectators gather for the spectacle. The illusionist is handcuffed, makes his preparations, and then jumps. Moments later, a liberated Houdini breaks the surface of the water. The crowd erupts in excitement. Houdini rides the wave of enthusiasm once more. The risk he takes with his life to draw attention proves fruitful. At that moment, Harry understands something crucial. To stay a star illusionist, one must put their life on the line. Pulling rabbits from hats won't lead to lasting success. Following the triumph of his initial jump, Harry repeats it time and again. If there's a bridge and a sufficiently deep river in a city, Houdini makes an appearance. He performs this stunt for several years. However, this time the performance feels dangerous, not just to the spectators, it truly is perilous. Unlike the carefully planned indoor acts, many factors could go awry here. He might land awkwardly or strike something beneath the water. Previously, the worst outcome of a failed trick was public embarrassment, but now it involves his very life. Houdini does sustain injuries on several occasions, yet they are not severe enough to deter him from performing. For Harry, fading into obscurity is more daunting than death itself. A later event reinforces this notion. In 1910, Harry Houdini journeys to Australia. His upcoming performance features a flight in an airplane. While it may seem disconnected from magic and illusion, it's important to note that for Harry Houdini, magical acts were merely a means to achieve popularity. Furthermore, at the dawn of the 20th century, aviation represented a genuine wonder. Pilots were seen as real-life superheroes. and the risk of crashing was quite significant. Houdini travels to Australia for a straightforward reason. By 1910, there had yet to be any airplane flights on the continent. Houdini aims to change that, while also capturing headlines as Australia's first pilot. He purchases an airplane and learns how to take off and land, though it doesn't always go as planned. A few of his flights result in injuries. Another challenge is that the journey from the States to Australia is quite lengthy. During this period, Houdini encounters several rivals. Ultimately, he arrives in Australia and completes his flight. While Harry does not become the first pilot on the continent, he ranks among the top 3, earning his headlines in the press through merit and returning to America with a feeling of unfinished business. By 1916, Houdini is on the lookout for new opportunities once more. In the world of show business, it is essential to continually reaffirm one's presence to the public. In the years that follow, Harry will present some of the most ambitious performances of his life. The first act is the escape from a straitjacket while suspended at a height. The concept of the trick is straightforward. Houdini is placed in a straitjacket and inverted several stories high. In just 30 seconds, he fully liberates himself. The trick's secret rested in the jacket's design and the precise positioning of his arms. This allowed Houdini to loosen the fabric just enough to free one arm, then the other, and ultimately unlock the straps. The resulting effect on the captivated audience was indescribable. The next standout trick was the infamous Chinese water torture cell. Bound in handcuffs, Houdini was positioned upside down in a large container filled with water. The difficulty lay in the fact that not only his hands but also his legs were secured. The top of the vessel was locked shut, and then this Chinese box was draped with a cloth. In under a minute, the cloth was removed to reveal Houdini standing beside the box, entirely free. At that time, no one could fathom how the illusionists accomplished such a feat. The trick was dazzling and was regarded as sheer magic. Eventually, the secret was revealed. When the assistant closed the top lid of the box, he deftly removed a rod from the loop. This maneuver enabled Houdini to first escape from the handcuffs, then effortlessly open the top lid in a way that left the locks intact, allowing him to climb out. As a further precaution during this performance, an assistant stood backstage with a large axe. Lastly, Houdini's most daring trick, the disappearance of an elephant. The intrigue surrounding this performance is amplified by the fact that it took place just once, and no records of it were kept. Finally, Houdini's most ambitious trick, the disappearance of an elephant. The enigma surrounding this performance is further deepened by the fact that it happened just once, with no photographs or videos preserved. In 1918, at a theater in New York, audience sizes reported varied from just a handful to several thousand. Houdini brings the elephant into a large box on stage, and within moments, it vanishes. How he accomplished this remains a mystery to this day. Various theories have been suggested. Some speculated that the secret lay in strategically placed mirrors inside the box, while others argued that cleverly positioned lighting made part of the box invisible. In short, this trick continues to be one of the most mysterious and intriguing. I can only hope that the elephant was unharmed, as I have found no information indicating anyone saw the animal after the show. The elephant disappearance trick represents the peak of Houdini's career. In the mid-1920s, various challenges emerged that jeopardized Harry Houdini's professional life. The first reason was personal. By then, his mother had passed away. For Houdini, she was his closest confidant, and it was for her that he had vowed to look after. The elephant disappearance trick becomes the highlight of Houdini's career. However, in the mid-1920s, several challenges emerged that put Harry Houdini's professional life at risk. The first reason was personal. By that time, his mother had died. For Houdini, she had been the closest person to him, and it was for her that he had promised to take care when his father was on his deathbed. The second reason is age. By 1924, Houdini is 50 years old. His tricks heavily depend on physical stamina, and for obvious reasons, it becomes increasingly challenging for him to perform them. The third reason is technology. The emergence of cinema presents a considerable threat to his career. In films, audiences witness far more spectacular tricks than those seen in real life, all made possible through special effects and editing. Houdini attempts to penetrate the booming film industry, but the movies featuring him do not succeed. His tricks on screen no longer appear as impressive. At that time, Houdini resolves to capitalize on the hype in different ways. He aims to expose frauds, with the most notorious being the spiritualists. These individuals gather in a room, allegedly summon spirits, and engage in communication with them. The conflict with the spiritualists will undoubtedly touch upon Harry Houdini's declining career, but it also poses the risk of costing him his life. In the early 20th century, spiritualism became a trendy phenomenon. Its popularity surged even more after World War I, as millions had perished, and their relatives were desperate to believe they could communicate with their loved ones in this manner. The medium played a central role, claiming to receive messages from the spirits of the deceased. In essence, spiritualism combined elements of religion, fraud, and organized crime. The seances were not free, which rendered them completely immoral. Harry Houdini resolves to embark on a crusade against the spiritualists, not because he was a staunch skeptic. In fact, following his mother's death, he likely participated in such seances himself. However, the trained eye of an experienced illusionist swiftly detected all the tricks and deceptions employed by the so-called mediums. The impending clash between Houdini and the spiritualists garnered additional intrigue due to Harry's close relationship with Arthur Conan Doyle. Viewers who tuned into the video about the true story of Sherlock Holmes may recall that the author was a uniquely fascinating individual. Despite his rational demeanor, Arthur Conan Doyle was a believer in spirits and served as one of the most notable advocates of spiritualism worldwide. Their conflict with Houdini unfolded gradually. Initially, Conan Doyle sought to persuade the illusionist of the authenticity of spiritual seances. While Doyle recognized that there were indeed frauds, he also believed in the existence of genuine mediums. For example, Arthur's wife consented to participate in a spiritual seance, during which he aimed to connect with his deceased mother in 1922. The seance unfolds in this manner. Conan Doyle's wife, in Houdini's presence, purportedly connects with her mother's spirit. which begins to guide the medium's hand, writing messages that the deceased wishes to communicate. Despite Harry's profound affection for his mother, he quickly discerns that this is a ruse. He vows to expose all mediums and their tricks. A media war erupts and escalates further when Houdini partners with a scientific journal in America. They announce a prize of $2,500 for any medium capable of conducting an authentic, spiritual seance. Mina Crandon, one of the most renowned female spiritualists in America at that time, answers the challenge. It was claimed that during her seances, people levitated, and she herself appeared nearly naked, supposedly demonstrating that she had nothing to conceal. During the seance with Crandon, which Houdini attends, he successfully reveals her deception, making it a sensational headline in the newspapers. At that moment, it becomes evident that Houdini no longer needs to plunge into icy waters or place himself in peril for the sake of fame. He shifts his focus to regularly exposing spiritualists. All of this resembles a contemporary television show where the host drops by a restaurant or hotel, uncovers filth or mold, and sparks a scandal. Houdini conceals his identity to avoid recognition, attends the seance, and dramatically reveals himself in the middle of it, announcing that everyone has been exposed. It appears quite entertaining, except for the death threats that start to pour in against Houdini. Spiritualists operated much like a vast mafia organization, and Houdini's actions began to strip them of a considerable share of their profits. On October 31st, 1926, Houdini passed away unexpectedly. The sudden death of one of the nation's most beloved figures at the age of 52 quickly sparked suspicions. Were the spiritualists in any way involved? The death threats directed at Houdini suggest that the spiritualists operated much like a vast mafia organization. The former illusionist's actions began to take away a significant portion of their profits. On October 31st, 1926, Houdini unexpectedly passed away. The sudden death of one of the country's most beloved figures at the age of 52 immediately raises suspicions. Could the spiritualists be involved? Gradually, more details surface. 2 days earlier, Houdini performed in Montreal. Prior to that, 3 students visited his dressing room. This is not unusual. The illusionist frequently engaged with audience members or fans. During the conversation, one of the students asked if Houdini could withstand a punch to the stomach. At that moment, the student delivered a powerful blow. Other attendees would later assert that at the time of the punch, Houdini was half reclined on the couch and didn't have an opportunity to brace himself. The punch did take place, but its strength remains uncertain, as does any connection between the students and the spiritualists. What is certain is that Houdini performed in a show that evening. Over the next 2 days, despite feeling unwell, he hesitated to seek medical attention until the last possible moment. Eventually, he was taken to the hospital, where he was diagnosed with peritonitis and underwent emergency surgery. It was revealed that Houdini had appendicitis. That evening, Houdini performed in a show, continuing for the next 2 days. Even though he felt unwell, he procrastinated on seeking medical attention until the very last moment. Ultimately, he was taken to the hospital, where he was diagnosed with peritonitis and underwent emergency surgery. It turned out that Houdini had an inflamed appendix. Most likely, the punch to the stomach 2 days prior was unrelated to this condition. Regardless, the doctors were unable to save him, and Houdini passed away. When his coffin was carried out onto the streets of New York, throngs of people appeared to pay their respects. I'm certain that some among them thought it was yet another trick and believed Houdini would miraculously rise from the dead. Harry had evaded death numerous times, and initially it might seem as if death had finally outwitted him. Yet Houdini, as a true master of performances, provided an unexpected twist. He effectively became immortal. To this day, he is regarded as the most famous illusionist in history. For many years after her husband's death, his wife participated in spiritualist sessions in hopes of connecting with him. Harry, who had battled charlatans for so long, still clung to the hope that one of them might be sincere. He and Bess had created a unique code even before his passing. If a spiritualist were to accurately reproduce it, toads would recognize that they were being truthful. However, a genuine spiritualist was never discovered.